I'm Gregory, Floyd, President, Local 237 Teamsters. Welcome to another edition of Reaching Out. Our first guest is Brooklyn District Attorney Joe Hynes. Mr. District Attorney, welcome to our show.
Greg, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. And before we aired the broadcast and we were talking, you came up with something remarkable, and I think we should talk about it and share with all our listeners. Something has occurred in the borough of Brooklyn that has not taken place since 1963.
It's an outgrowth of a program we started about 12 years ago. It was the idea of Patricia Gatling, who's now the chair of the Human Rights Commission for Bloomberg, who was my first assistant, and suggested that if we provided a reentry program for the formerly incarcerated, maybe we could do something about reducing their reoffending rate, which is remarkably high. 6 out of 10 folks who come from upstate prison get rearrested within 3 years, and more than half go back to prison at the same time. And the idea was to give them wraparound services, interview skills, resume writing skills, computer skills, give them transitional employment, and then move them on for permanent employment. Well, it's been remarkably successful. Bruce Weston of Harvard University released a 22-month study in 2007 and found that we reduced the reoffending rate by more than half. So instead of 6 out of 10, it's more like 2 out of 10. At the end of last year, for the first time since 1963, sadly known for the assassination of John Kennedy, we had under 200 murders in Brooklyn. We had 25 fewer murders than we did the year before. And I am morally certain that that is directly connected with our reentry program. And I can only hope that the city council and other funders will understand if we can increase the numbers we're dealing with. We service about 1,000 of the formerly incarcerated a year out of the 3,500 that come home every year to Brooklyn. If we can expand that to 2,000 and 2,500, we can continue reducing violent crime in Brooklyn.
What would it take to expand your program?
Oh, probably about $650,000 for an additional 1,000. So it's not a heavy per person cost because we have staff in place. We just need the expansion of some of our services.
Now, on the fiscal side, if we were to give you $650,000, how much money would that save in court costs, legal costs, and criminal costs?
Well, I can tell you that we estimate that we are saving on average $4 or $5 million a year because of this reentry program, because it's reduced arrest time. So when you have an arrest, you have to factor in the cost of the police, the prosecutors, the judges, the public defenders. So our rough estimate, and I don't think it's all that rough, is between $4 and $5 million a year. So it's for cost savings, it's a no-brainer.
So you have come up with a program, and it's really unconventional. You're more of a crime prevention district attorney than a prosecuting district attorney.
You know, Greg, I prosecute, put a lot of people in jail. But the people who go to jail in Brooklyn are basically people who commit very, very serious crimes. And there's sort of a saying around the criminal justice system that to go to prison in Brooklyn, you got to be a bad dude. And these folks who we send to prison commit very, very tough crimes, but they do come home. What we have done over the 21 years that I've been privileged to be district attorney is essentially redesign the office of a public prosecutor. The easiest thing we do is put people in jail. The challenge is prevention, intervention, and then reentry for the folks who come home from prison. We have some 30 programs, and your listeners can, or your viewers rather, can go up on brooklynda.org, and you'll see 30 programs that didn't exist before 1990. And in 1990, we were the 5th most violent place in America, Brooklyn. In 2003, Money Magazine said we were one of the 10 best places to live in America. Now, it's not all about us.
Right.
What it's about is the leadership in the community, reflected by community leaders, labor leaders, religious leaders, people who understood that in order to solve the problem, you have to work with law enforcement. Cops do, I think, a very, very good job. And then these programs, the sum of them, are the ones that reduce recidivism. And that's the key to public safety, reducing reoffending rates.
You have a program that is very interesting, Operation Safe Surrender. Can you tell us what that means, how that came about, and what it does?
Well, the great Reverend Dr. Johnny Ray Youngblood approached me about 18 months ago, and he said he knew of a program that the U.S. Marshals had where folks had warrants out for their arrest. And he knew that he had a lot of his congregants who had arrest warrants pending. The more we looked into it, the more shocking it was, Greg. At any one time, 250,000 people in Brooklyn have not appeared when they are required to answer for a C summons. Those are the low-level summonses: riding a bike on the sidewalk, an open container of beer, going in a park after dark. It is a minor summons. But when they don't show up, an arrest warrant issues, which is a heck of a lot more serious, because you can't get a job where they do background checks because the fingerprint is going to pop up your warrant. You are constantly under fear of driving and getting stopped by a police officer and having the warrant pop. So I thought it was a great idea. And we started our first program 18 months ago in Reverend Youngblood's church. We had a judge, we had court clerks, we had court officers. It was a full court part. And we had 125 to 150 people come, and their summonses were cleared. They got community service time, a small fine. It gave credibility to the program because the next time we did it, we had about 300 people. And this last time, we had over 500 folks show up at one of the churches. And what Reverend Youngblood and I are going to do is to do it again in April of this year. We're trying to create a credibility level that can ultimately say to folks, if you go to Skimmerhorn Street, where the court is located, there will be a special court part. There'll even be a special entrance for you, so you'll be fast-tracked through the court part. Your summons will be, your arrest warrant will be set aside, and you're free to rejoin, the rest of the folks. And so we think we can do it, but we think it's probably going to take us another year to do it.
I'm Gregory Floyd, President, Local 237 Teamsters. You're listening to Reaching Out. Our very special guest is District Attorney of Brooklyn, Joe Hynes. You have other programs that you created that focus on safety of young people. Safe Stop program.
The Safe Stop is a matter of an investment by store owners throughout Brooklyn to have a decal put in their window. And we'll promote through senior citizen centers and through schools that if a child or a senior feels threatened, they can go into the store, and the store owner has agreed to call 911 for them, or to call 311 if there's some other issue, or to call their home. And we opened Safe Stop in August out in Sunset Park. We had 45 stores. We now have passed the 200-store mark, and our goal is that by the spring we'll have more than 1,000 stores, and ultimately we hope to institutionalize this program. We think, again, it's another very meaningful and demonstrably successful program to reduce reoffending rates and continue to raise levels of public safety for people in our county.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this segment of Reaching Out. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Appreciate it.
Great, buddy.